Lady XY Zara lounged on her throne, forearms resting on the intricate armrests, her long, powerful legs crossed as she surveyed the latest batch of suitors before her. The grand hall of the Vashtal Empire was vast, filled with noble aliens of every shape and size, each one trying, failing, to impress her. Her advisors stood nervously at the sides, exchanging glances. No one dared to speak first. Finally, High Chancellor Vierlock, a stiff-backed, three-eyed bureaucrat, cleared his throat. My lady, the selection process has reached its critical stage. Without a suitable consort, you will forfeit your claim to the Galactic throne. Time is... She lifted a finger, silencing him. Time is meaningless when every option is a disaster. Her golden eyes narrowed. That one has scales that clash with my house colors. That one? I smelled his battle pheromones from across the hall. And that one, what am I supposed to do with a mate whose mandibles are asymmetrical? The rejected suitors shuffled out awkwardly, some grumbling, others outright fleeing. The Chancellor sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. With respect, my lady, you are being difficult. XY Zara arched a brow. Difficult? I simply refuse to lower my standards. You may have no choice. Vierlock's tone was careful. There is one final candidate. He does not meet the traditional qualifications, but there is an alternative interpretation of the prophecy regarding the galactic heart. She narrowed her eyes. Explain. Vierlock adjusted his ceremonial robes. Your great ancestors left a decree. When all else fails, the consort must be one who is neither warrior nor noble, but who thrives where others would falter. The key to your heart lies in adaptability, not strength. XY Zara snorted. Cryptic nonsense. The Chancellor hesitated. Then, carefully, some scholars believe this refers to a human. Silence. A flicker of confusion crossed XY Zara's face, followed quickly by disgust. A human? One of those small, flimsy creatures? They are said to be resilient in unconventional ways. She scoffed, forearms crossing. Resilient? I could snap one in half with a single hand. Perhaps. But, Vierlock coughed, shifting awkwardly. There are legends. Stories of humans enduring far beyond expected limits. Some say they possess an almost unnatural persistence. A certain tenacity that makes them capable of... Capable of what? XY Zara leaned forward, golden eyes gleaming. The Chancellor swallowed, filling the necessary role. A ripple of murmurs swept the chamber. Her brows furrowed. So you're telling me that I, XY Zara, heir to the galactic throne, slayer of the Onyx warlords, am expected to bond with some primitive furless creature from a backwater world? Vierlock did not meet her gaze. The vault will only open through intimate synchronization with the chosen consort. A pause. A very long, tense pause. XY Zara's expression remained unreadable. Then, a slow, predatory smile curved her lips. I see. Another advisor, a frazzled-looking diplomat, wrung their hands. There are complications. The human candidate is not exactly. Bring him. Vierlock hesitated. But my lady. She flicked a hand, dismissing further objections. You've already insulted me by suggesting this. The least you can do is let me see the little creature before I decide whether to crush him beneath my heel. Vierlock sighed, signaling to the guards. A few moments later, the doors swung open. 2 armored enforcers entered, each gripping the arms of a thoroughly unimpressed, slightly rumpled human man. He stood at barely half XY Zara's height, dark-haired, lean rather than muscular, dressed in the wrinkled uniform of a space station technician. His expression? Equal parts tired, annoyed, and faintly amused. Jake Walker took one look at the enormous alien woman on the throne, tilted his head, and sighed. Great. Another tall woman looking at me like I'm a snack. He flexed his shoulders, shaking off the guards. Can someone please explain why I got yanked off my shift for this? XY Zara's golden eyes raked over him, lips pursed. You're smaller than I expected. Jake exhaled, muttering under his breath. Not the first time I've heard that. The Chancellor went rigid. Human, you stand before the heir to the Vashtal Empire. Show respect. Jake snorted. Yeah? And what, exactly, is this all about? He gestured vaguely at the throne room. I was fixing a plasma conduit, minding my business, and now I'm here, some 7-foot-tall goon telling me I have to meet some noble lady who needs a key to her heart. What does that even mean? Xyzara's expression did not change. It means I require a consort. Jake blinked. A consort? A mate. A bonded partner. Like a husband? Essentially. Jake stared at her. Then at Viarlocke. Then back at her. Lady, are you sure you kidnapped the right guy? 'Cause I've been dumped a lot, usually by women who claim they can do better. One of the advisors whispered urgently. My lady, perhaps. Xyzara raised a hand for silence, her gaze locked onto Jake. There was something different about the human. Unlike the trembling nobles who had groveled before her, he didn't look intimidated. He was irritated, maybe even exasperated, but there was no fear in his eyes. If anything, he looked annoyingly amused. She exhaled, considering. I was told humans were adaptable. Jake scratched the back of his neck. I mean, yeah. We have to be. Otherwise, we'd have died out ages ago. And you are resilient? He shrugged. I once drank expired space station coffee for 3 weeks straight. Survived. That remains to be seen. Xyzara stood, her full height towering over him. You claim to be adaptable. Resilient. Very well. Prove it. Jake hesitated. Prove it how, exactly? Xyzara's smirk widened. You and I, she said slowly, are about to become very synchronized. Jake swallowed. I feel like I should be worried. You should be, Viarlocke muttered. Jake exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. All right, fine. Let's say I go along with this crazy plan. What's in it for me? Xyzara leaned down, her golden gaze burning into his. The chance to be the only human in the galaxy who holds the key to my heart. A long silence. Then, Jake scratched his chin and muttered. You know, when I imagined an alien wife, I figured she'd be blue. But this is definitely new. Jake sat on the edge of a ridiculously oversized cushion, rubbing his temples. He was still trying to process the absurdity of the situation. Less than an hour ago, he had been on a grimy space station fixing a leaking conduit. Now, he was apparently the key to unlocking some alien lady's inheritance. You're serious about this? He muttered, glancing up at Xyzara, who stood before him with arms crossed, looking completely unimpressed. As serious as interstellar war, she said flatly. Great. So, just to clarify, I've been kidnapped for a space marriage because some ancient vault thinks I have what it takes to, what? Activate a security lock with the power of love? Not love, Xyzara corrected. Synchronization. Right. Because that makes it less weird. One of her advisors cleared their throat. The vault only recognizes a bonded consort. It will not open unless the connection is deemed sufficient. Jake snorted. And here I thought my worst commitment issue was my last girlfriend wanting a joint bank account. Xyzara narrowed her golden eyes. If you are not interested, I can always choose another. Jake considered this. Then he looked at the looming guards, the giant alien woman with arms thick enough to bend metal, and the fact that he had no idea where the nearest escape pod was. You know what? I'll hear you out, he said, leaning back. Not because I want to, but because I have a deep, deep interest in not dying horribly. Xyzara smirked. A wise decision. So, Jake said, stretching his arms, how does this compatibility thing work? Some kind of sci-fi scan? DNA transfer? Fingerprint recognition? The advisor coughed. Xyzara's expression didn't change. Jake frowned. Wait. Why are you looking at me like that? The Chancellor cleared his throat. The synchronization ritual requires Physical attunement. Physical attunement? Jake repeated. Direct contact. His eyes flicked to XY Zara. Define direct. You must engage in sustained proximity, the Chancellor explained, looking like he would rather fling himself out an airlock than elaborate further. Jake's mouth opened, then closed. He turned back to XY Zara. So basically, I have to snuggle my way into a multimillion credit inheritance. That is an oversimplification. It really isn't. XY Zara exhaled sharply. You humans and your delicate phrasing. It is a simple task. The vault is biologically coded to the presence of a bonded consort. A period of interaction will establish that bond. Then, and only then, will the Galactic Heart accept our union as legitimate and grant access. Jake processed this for a long moment. So, you do need a cuddle key. A muscle in XY Zara's jaw twitched. The Chancellor shot him a look of sheer horror. You will not refer to it as such. Jake smirked. I absolutely will. XY Zara's fingers flexed like she was debating whether snapping his spine was worth the hassle. You will comply, she said icily. Lady, I just got over my last breakup. You're gonna have to at least buy me dinner before we jump straight into the whole body heat authentication thing. The Chancellor wheezed like his soul had left his body. XY Zara stepped closer, towering over him, her voice a purr of challenge. Do you truly think you can keep up, tiny human? Jake looked up at her. Looked at her 4 muscular arms, the 7-foot height difference, the absolutely dangerous glint in her golden eyes. And then, because he was an idiot, he grinned. Oh, sweetheart. You have no idea what humans can handle. A heavy pause filled the chamber. One of the guards whispered. By the stars, he has no survival instincts. The Chancellor muttered. We are all going to die. XY Zara tilted her head, watching Jake carefully, as if debating whether he was truly as fearless, or as stupid, as he appeared. Then, after a long moment, she smirked. Then let us see what you are made of, darling. Jake exhaled sharply, rubbing his face. I really need to stop flirting with terrifying women. Jake sat stiffly, watching as the alien attendants prepared the chamber. He wasn't entirely sure what kind of bonding ritual was about to happen, but judging by the sheer number of ceremonial robes, scented oils, and glowing energy sigils, he had a bad feeling. All right, he said, glancing at XY Zara, who was standing with regal ease. Tell me this isn't as weird as it looks. It is a formal process, she replied smoothly. You humans complicate your pairings with unnecessary sentiment. This is purely functional. Right. Because nothing about a dimly lit ritual chamber screams romantic undertones to me. One of the attendants stepped forward, holding an ancient-looking scroll. The trial of compatibility shall now commence. The bonded must achieve harmonization for the vault to recognize their union. Jake squinted. Harmonization? That sounds suspiciously vague. XY Zara exhaled. It means we must be in sync. Yeah, see, that still isn't clearing anything up. The Chancellor rubbed his temples. Physical synchronization, human. Contact. Jake crossed his arms. So we're talking like a handshake? A fist bump? What's the minimum requirement here? The attendants ignored him, stepping forward to drape a thick ceremonial sash around both of them, binding their arms together. Whoa, hold up. The ritual has begun, the attendant intoned. Jake looked down at their bound arms. This is not at all what I signed up for. XY Zara barely spared him a glance. Remain still. You say that, but you have 4 arms, and I'm currently attached to one of them. If you move, I move. The vault is attuned to biological compatibility, the attendant explained. The bond will only be recognized if both participants display sufficient unity. Jake huffed. You guys are really good at making this sound way more complicated than it needs to be. XY Zara turned her head slightly, arching a brow. Would you prefer a battle trial? I could always see if you survive the alternative method. Jake sighed. No. This is fine. Totally normal. Just your standard alien marriage bonding vault opening ceremony. The attendants stepped back, and the vault chamber rumbled. A massive circular door stood before them, its surface etched with pulsating golden runes. The trial begins now, the Chancellor declared. Proceed. Jake glanced at XY Zara. So what? We just stand here. The vault is scanning our synchronization, she said evenly. Remain still and let it assess our connection. A hum filled the chamber. The golden runes flickered, scanning them with an eerie pulse of energy. Jake felt something tingle against his skin, like static electricity crawling over him. Then, the vault let out a sharp beep. Error, inadequate synchronization. The attendants exchanged nervous looks. XY Zara frowned. Jake groaned. Of course it's not that easy. The Chancellor cleared his throat. Perhaps the bond is not yet fully established. Jake rolled his eyes. Let me guess. More contact? XY Zara's expression didn't change. More synchronization. Jake threw up his free hand. Fantastic. Just fantastic. All right, what now? One of the attendants hesitated. A closer connection may be required. A true pair bond must display unity of body and will. Jake froze. You're messing with me. The Chancellor remained serious. We are not. XY Zara sighed, stepping closer, closing the already minimal distance between them. Do not be difficult, human. Easy for you to say. Jake muttered as she placed two of her hands on his shoulders, effectively locking him in place. You're 10 feet tall and built like an apex predator. The vault pulsed again. Another scan. Another error message. XY Zara exhaled sharply. Unacceptable. Jake huffed. Yeah, because I'm totally the issue here. The Chancellor adjusted his robes. It is possible that the ritual requires a display of emotional synchronization as well. Jake blinked. Wait. Emotional? XY Zara's jaw tensed. Ridiculous. This is a practical arrangement. Jake pointed at the vault. Tell that to your magic space door. The Chancellor hesitated. Perhaps an act of affection would suffice. No. Jake sighed. Listen, Princess. If this overgrown safe wants proof that we're bonded, we could try literally any other method that doesn't involve me getting crushed like a soda can. XY Zara's golden eyes flicked down to him. Are you afraid? Jake held her gaze. Lady, I just came to terms with the idea that I'm apparently your fiancé. If I wasn't afraid, I'd be clinically insane. She smirked. Perhaps you should be honored. Jake exhaled. Oh yeah? What a privilege. One wrong move and I'd die via accidental spine realignment. The Chancellor cleared his throat. Perhaps a compromise. Jake raised an eyebrow. Like what? The Chancellor gestured. A mutual gesture of unity. Something simple. XY Zara arched a brow. Such as? The Chancellor hesitated. He coughed. Asterisk handhold star dot. Silence. Jake stared at the old man. Asterisk a what asterisk? XY Zara frowned. Asterisk that asterisk is the requirement? The Chancellor nodded gravely. It is the most basic form of synchronization. Jake snorted. Oh, sure. Let's just hold hands. That's totally not the lamest romantic ritual I've ever heard of. XY Zara muttered. Humans are truly the strangest species. Jake extended his free hand. Fine. Let's do this. But if this doesn't work, I'm filing an official complaint with the Galactic Weirdness Department. XY Zara gripped his hand firmly, her massive fingers practically swallowing his. The vault pulsed again. A low, deep hum vibrated through the chamber. The golden runes flickered, then shifted. A voice echoed from the ancient mechanism. Synchronization accepted. Jake's eyebrows shot up. No. Way. The Chancellor let out a relieved breath. At last. The bond has been recognized. XY Zara didn't let go of his hand immediately. She studied him with an unreadable expression. It seems you are more useful than I expected. Jake sighed. Fantastic. I'm hand-holding my way into space royalty. XY Zara smirked. You should be grateful. Jake groaned. I really should have stayed on that space station. The vault let out a deep, resonating click as the golden runes locked into place. A moment later, the massive doors groaned open, revealing a shimmering chamber bathed in soft, pulsating light. XY Zara stepped forward first, her movements fluid and confident, while Jake hesitated at the threshold. Well, that was a lot of work for a fancy safe, he muttered, rubbing his hand where her grip had nearly crushed his fingers. Let's hope whatever's inside is actually worth it. XY Zara ignored him, stepping into the chamber, eyes scanning the ornate pedestal in the center. Resting atop it was a crystalline device pulsing faintly, intricate alien symbols dancing across its surface. The Chancellor let out a reverent breath. The Galactic Heart. Jake frowned. That's it? No piles of treasure? No laser swords or ancient secrets? Just a weird glowing rock? The inheritance of my bloodline is contained within, XY Zara said, approaching the pedestal. We have achieved synchronization. Now it will transfer the rights of ownership. Jake folded his arms. Still feeling a little underpaid for all the forced bonding rituals. The Chancellor coughed. Ahem. There is one final step. Jake sighed. Of course there is. XY Zara raised a brow. Elaborate. The Chancellor hesitated, suddenly looking extremely interested in the floor. The heart does not simply transfer ownership. It finalizes the bond between the consort and the heir. Jake's stomach dropped. Finalizes how, exactly? The Chancellor shuffled. The contract is permanent. Your union is now legally binding. Silence. Jake blinked. Hold on. What? XY Zara's expression didn't change. Explain. The Chancellor took a careful step back. In ancient tradition, the bond was not merely symbolic. Once the Galactic Heart recognizes a consort, it seals the agreement. The human is now, permanently your consort, as dictated by imperial decree. Jake let out a short laugh. Then another. Then he stopped, eyes widening. Wait, you're serious? The law is absolute. The Chancellor confirmed. Jake ran a hand down his face. You mean to tell me I just accidentally married an alien woman because a space rock decided I was compatible? XY Zara hummed. It would seem so. Jake gestured wildly. And you're okay with this? She tilted her head. Why would I not be? The bond has been recognized. It is done. Just like that? No second thoughts? No takebacks? You have proven adaptable. Sufficiently resilient. I see no reason to dispute the result. Jake groaned, pacing. Great. Fantastic. I came here expecting to get fried by some ancient security system, and now I'm stuck in an intergalactic marriage. XY Zara smirked. Is the idea so terrible? Jake shot her a look. Lady, you're 10 feet tall and built like a genetically engineered warrior goddess. I am very aware of how that might appeal to some guys, but let's be real. I am not built to handle this arrangement. The Chancellor adjusted his robe. Technically, you are now bound by imperial law. Refusing your role would be considered treason. Jake threw his hands up. Awesome. Love that. So my choices are space jail or becoming an alien trophy husband. XY Zara exhaled, stepping closer. You are being dramatic. Dramatic? Lady, I was fixing a broken air filter 3 hours ago. Now I'm apparently in a legally binding relationship with an alien noblewoman who could probably break my ribs with a hug. XY Zara's lips twitched. I shall endeavor to avoid that. Jake groaned. This is not how I saw my day going. The Chancellor cleared his throat. There is another matter. Jake dropped his hands. Oh, what now? The inheritance does not solely include wealth. The Chancellor hesitated. It includes responsibility. Jake frowned. Responsibility for what? XY Zara turned to him. As my consort, You are entitled to half my holdings. Jake blinked. Hold up. Half? She nodded. Half the planetary assets under my control. Half of my fleets. Half of my political standing. Half of everything. Jake's mouth opened, then closed. Then opened again. Wait. Does this mean I technically own a starship fleet now? XY Zara nodded. Jake ran a hand through his hair. Okay. All right. I need a minute. The Chancellor sighed. You must also fulfill the role of consort in official capacities. Jake froze. Define official capacities. You must attend state functions. Participate in ceremonial duties. And, of course, accompany Lady XY Zara as her. Absolutely not. Jake interrupted. Nope. Whatever you're about to say, nope. XY Zara smirked. You agreed to the trial. Now you must embrace the consequences. Jake threw his arms in the air. I didn't know the consequences included being married to a space queen. XY Zara's gaze was amused. You will adapt. Jake exhaled, shaking his head. Unbelievable star dot. The Chancellor clapped his hands together. Then it is settled. The bond is recognized, the inheritance secured, and the consort affirmed. Jake looked at XY Zara, who regarded him with her usual unreadable expression. So, what now? She smirked. Now? We see if you can keep up. Jake sighed. Yeah, that's exactly what I was afraid of.